Think running out of toilet paper is a nightmare? Try wiping with a communal sponge on a stick and passing it to a stranger. Forget your 3-ply ultra-soft aloe vera. Welcome to the mighty Roman Empire. Picture this: 20 guys chilling in a public restroom. No stalls, zero privacy. Just you and a bunch of strangers sitting side by side on cold stone benches, casually debating politics in your elegant togas. But here is the real trauma. When it was time to clean up, they shared a single tool, the xylospongium, a sea sponge jammed on a wooden stick. They'd dunk this bad boy into a shared bucket of salt water and vinegar, do the deed, and literally hand it to the guy sitting right next to them. From passing the salty butt sponge around a circle of politicians, to the sheer agony of dried corn cobs, and the horrifying reality that the world's first commercial toilet paper was packed with wooden splinters. Today, we are unlocking the grossest chapter of history nobody dares to talk about: the epic, bizarre, and terrifying evolution of how humanity learned to wipe. Welcome back to the BrainBoost English Podcast. I'm your host, and today we are going on a journey that will make you deeply appreciate your modern bathroom. So, flush your expectations down the drain, get comfortable, and let us travel back in time to explore the unspoken survival skills of our ancestors. Let us start at the very beginning. For the vast majority of human existence, our ancestors lived strictly by the rules of Mother Nature. When the call of nature came, nature itself had to provide the solution. It was a time of pure improvisation and desperate creativity. You used whatever was within arm's reach: broad leaves, handfuls of moss, smooth river stones, seashells, and if you lived in the freezing north, a highly refreshing but freezing handful of snow. But this natural roulette was incredibly dangerous. Imagine being a tough hunter-gatherer, dealing with the daily threats of wild predators and starvation, only to make the fatal mistake of wiping with a handful of poison ivy. It was the ultimate betrayal by the ecosystem. Nature is beautiful, but it is also completely ruthless. And our ancestors had to learn botany the hard way, just to survive a trip to the bushes. As human societies evolved and moved toward agriculture, our bathroom habits had to adapt. When European settlers arrived in the Americas, they found themselves facing brutal winters and a severe lack of soft materials. But they did have one thing in massive abundance, and that was corn. Now, when you picture corn, you might think of a delicious summer barbecue with butter and salt. But for early Americans, the corn harvest provided their absolute #1 bathroom accessory. Once the soft yellow kernels were eaten or scraped off, the hard, dry, rough corn cob was left behind. And yes, my friends, they used the dried corn cobs. You have to take a long moment to truly process the sheer willpower and physical toughness required to use a scratchy, rigid agricultural byproduct on your most sensitive areas. It was a harsh, unforgiving era. They even kept buckets of dried cobs in their wooden outhouses. It was a gritty, survivalist approach to hygiene that perfectly matched the rugged pioneer spirit. You simply could not be weak if your daily morning routine involved a corn cob. Some historical accounts even joke that they would use a red cob first and then a white cob to see if they needed another red cob. That is how practical and tough these people were. But while the Western world was bravely fighting the battle of the corn cob, something magical was happening in the East. Let us leave the rough-and-tumble pioneer outhouses and step into the luxurious, fragrant palaces of imperial China. The Chinese had already revolutionized the world by inventing paper around the 2nd century. For hundreds of years, paper was incredibly expensive, used exclusively for recording important historical documents, beautiful poetry, and royal decrees. But eventually, someone brilliant realized that this amazing invention had a much more practical application. By the 14th century, during the mighty Ming Dynasty, the Chinese royal court had completely transformed the bathroom experience, while peasants around the world were still using leaves, rocks, and whatever they could find on the ground. The Emperor of China and his royal family were enjoying custom-made, giant sheets of toilet paper. We are not talking about small, flimsy squares on a cardboard roll. These were massive sheets, measuring 2 feet by 3 feet, designed for ultimate comfort and protection. And the luxury did not stop there. The royal toilet paper was incredibly soft and heavily perfumed with precious fragrances to ensure that the emperor smelled like a walking flower garden at all times. Records show that the royal court went through millions of these giant perfume sheets every single year. It is a fascinating historical contrast, a perfect representation of the massive wealth inequality of the ancient world. The ultimate flex of power was not just wearing gold silk or commanding massive armies. It was having a beautifully scented, perfectly soft piece of paper in the bathroom while the rest of the world was literally scraping by with stones. So, humanity eventually figured out that paper was the superior choice. But it would take centuries for the rest of the world to catch up to the ancient Chinese emperors. In the West, it took the invention of the printing press to finally bring paper into the outhouses of regular people. As books, newspapers, and printed materials became cheap and widely available, Americans realized something fantastic. You could read the news and then use the news. It was the ultimate recycling program. The greatest hero of the 19th century American outhouse was not a politician, but a catalog. The Sears Roebuck catalog was a massive, thick book sent to homes all across the country. Families would look at the farming equipment and clothes, and when the new catalog arrived, the old one went straight to the outhouse. The pages were soft, uncoated, and absolutely free. In fact, it was so popular for this specific purpose that another famous publication, the Old Farmer's Almanac, started pre-drilling a hole in the corner of their books. Why? So you could easily hang it on a nail right next to the toilet seat. People loved using free magazines. It was the golden age of cheap, readable bathroom tissue. If you are enjoying this bizarre journey through history, please hit that like button, subscribe to the BrainBoost English Podcast, and leave a comment below telling me what you would have used if you lived in the Stone Age. Would you risk the leaves or go for the smooth river rock? Let me know right now in the comments. But here is where our story takes a dark and painful turn. With everyone happily using free catalogs and newspapers, a businessman decided it was time to make money. He wanted to sell people something they were already getting for free. So, the first commercial toilet paper was invented. But what if I told you that the people who first bought it deeply regretted their decision? What happens when a shiny new product is secretly filled with tiny, sharp wooden splinters, turning a trip to the bathroom into a game of Russian roulette? In 1857, an American inventor named Joseph Gaiety introduced what he proudly called the greatest necessity of the age. It was Gaiety's medicated paper. It was the first commercially packaged toilet paper made of pure hemp and infused with soothing aloe. He was so incredibly proud of his creation that his name was printed on every single individual sheet. Imagine the ego it takes to want your personal signature on something people use to wipe their bottoms. But Gaiety's grand invention was a massive commercial failure. Why? Because it cost $50 for 500 sheets. In the 1850s, that was a small fortune. People looked at his fancy aloe paper and then looked at the massive, free Sears catalog sitting next to them. The choice was obvious. Why pay good money for something you can get for free in your mail? Gaiety went bankrupt, and the dream of soft paper was temporarily flushed away. But capitalism always finds a way. Fast forward to the late 1870s, and two brothers named Thomas and Edward Scott decided to try again. They had a revolutionary idea. Instead of selling flat sheets in a box, they rolled the paper around a small cardboard tube. It was genius. The modern toilet paper roll was born. However, the Scott brothers faced a major cultural problem. Victorian society was painfully modest. People did not talk about bathroom habits. It was considered vulgar and highly inappropriate to even acknowledge that human beings went to the bathroom. Because of this extreme social embarrassment, the Scott brothers refused to put their own name on their product. They sold it to hotels and drugstores under different fake brand names so nobody would associate the Honorable Scott family with the unmentionable act of wiping. Now you might think this is the happy ending of our story. We finally have the toilet paper roll. But this is exactly where the nightmare truly begins. You see, to make the paper cheap enough for everyone to buy, manufacturers stopped using expensive materials like hemp or cotton. They switched to the cheapest material available, which was wood pulp. The problem was that late 19th century manufacturing technology was incredibly basic. When they processed the wood into paper, they could not completely filter out all the tiny pieces of raw wood. That is right. The toilet paper of the late 1800s and early 1900s was absolutely packed with microscopic, sharp wooden splinters. Imagine the sheer terror of everyday life. You wake up, have a nice cup of coffee, head to the bathroom, and then you have to perform an extreme risk assessment on a piece of tissue paper. People had to carefully inspect each square, rubbing it gently between their fingers, praying they did not miss a hidden spike. Going to the bathroom was no longer just a call of nature. It was an extreme sport. It was a high-stakes gamble with your physical well-being. The most sensitive parts of the human anatomy were under constant, terrifying assault by the very product designed to clean them. We look back at history and think about wars and plagues, but nobody ever talks about the silent suffering of millions of people fighting a daily battle against splinter-filled toilet paper. This reign of terror lasted for decades. It was not until the year 1930 that a company called Northern Tissue achieved a medical and engineering miracle. They introduced a new method of processing wood pulp that finally removed every single piece of wood. They launched a massive nationwide advertising campaign with one simple, glorious promise: splinter-free toilet paper. It seems hilarious to us today, but in 1930, this was the equivalent of landing on the moon. The public was overjoyed. Finally, humanity could sit down, clean up, and move on with their day without fearing for their absolute lives. The Dark Ages were officially over. This journey brings us to a fascinating realization about human psychology. As toilet paper became softer, cheaper, and safer, we became completely dependent on it. We went from tough survivors who could handle leaves and corn cobs to delicate creatures who panic if we only have one-ply paper. Nothing proves this dramatic shift more than the great toilet paper crisis of the year 2020. When a global pandemic hit, people did not hoard canned food or water. They literally fought each other in supermarket aisles for massive packages of multi-ply, ultra-soft toilet paper. We saw fully grown adults wrestling over a 12-pack of Charmin like it was liquid gold. It is the ultimate irony of human evolution. 2,000 years ago, the greatest empire on Earth happily shared a single salty sponge on a stick. Today, we view a personal, pristine roll of paper as the absolute baseline of a civilized society. So, the next time you use the restroom, take a moment to look at that humble white roll. Appreciate its softness, marvel at its complete lack of wooden splinters. You are holding the result of centuries of struggle, innovation, and desperate survival. Thank you for tuning in to this incredibly weird episode of the BrainBoost English Podcast. If you learned something new, or if you are just suddenly very grateful for your modern bathroom, please leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who loves weird history. Stay curious, stay clean, and I will see you in the next story.